Okay, folks. Jeremy, you too. So why is the vent not working right now, Phineas?
Because the lung is probably hooked up.
Thank you. Yeah, see? Be hooked up. Unhappy vent. So we're going to turn it off, turn it back on.
Trick people. Really not this
We're going to do same patient. Hit accept. And now we can hook up. See this right here, you guys? Decreased minute ventilation. The bottom light came on. That's telling you that the alarm is a low priority alarm. The sounds and the lights will be different when it's a high priority alarm as opposed to a low priority alarm. Circuit disconnect, red, sound different. When you hear that, you know that that's a high priority alarm.
Do the low priority one again? Sorry.
Hold on.
That's a charge your phone. Yeah.
Charge your phone.
Hey, baby.
You hear the difference? Meow, meow, yeah. And then there's a medium priority, but let's see what it does. High pressure. Second light. And it's different. So you'll know by the 3 different statuses there which one, if it's a high priority. But definitely you can tell high priority. It has a distinct sound to it. That's the one that's the high priority. That's like circuit disconnects.
It's a happy noise for such a...
Yeah. Okay, so up here in the corner, we have C and A. C is, it's a machine breath, if it's a C. If you see an A, it's assisted by the patient. You'll see an A up there if the patient's doing anything. R2D2.
Just like R2D2.
Okay, so up here is all of our patient data on this ventilator, the top row. Peak pressure, mean, PEEP, I to E, frequency, tidal volume, and minute ventilation. Exhale, tidal volume, and minute ventilation. Here's our waveform screen, and then here's our set parameters. So remember, we always told you there's going to be different sections. And then the alarms are down here as well. So anytime you want to know what's going on with the patient, you're going to look up here. This is the only patient data it shows. It's the only place to find out anything. It's not, no other buttons to push. Common mistake I see people make, because it kind of defaults here, is they're going to leave the flow at like 25 in a square waveform. What happens a lot of times is it gives you, I don't have it right now, but because this is really low. It'll give you a really low, not good I to E ratio, especially if you have your rate higher.
I was told yesterday that IDE should ideally be like 1 to 3.
Yeah, 1 to 3 is average. So you really have to pay C. Here we got a 1 to 1. We have an incredibly low flow. Our flow is only 20 right now, and our waveform is a square. You guys have to pay attention to this section because this is going to affect your patient's I to E ratio, which is very important. So knowing where the flow in the waveform needs to be ramp, and it will change your I to E ratio. And then your flow needs to, usually a good starting point for flow is 60. So now we make those changes, and this will make everything happy again. It takes a few breaths to do it. See, now we have like a 1 to 3. when we talk about asthmatics and COPDers and all that, we'll talk about the fact that those patients definitely need longer E times, and the flows will usually be higher on those patients. So flows sometimes of 80 to 100. Get the breath in real quick so we can give them as long as time to exhale as possible. Now when we go over to pressure control, you're going to see that we don't have a place for flow anymore because remember in pressure we don't set the flow. The flow is variable based on the breath. But so here we can actually set our I to E ratio. So in volume control, we're setting our flow to set our I to E ratio, and in pressure control, we don't control the flow, so we actually set the I to E ratio. And it's the numbers that are there. So when you're in pressure control, you have an I to E button. When you're in volume control, you have a flow. But just remember that flow directly changes your I to E ratio by changing the breath speed. So here's your battery section. Compressor tells you that it's ready, but it's not on. Now it's on. And you can hear it. Remember, this vent has an internal air compressor. So if something happens to the air source, it will kick in. Otherwise, we're plugged in and it won't run. It also has battery, just like all of them, although the batteries don't last very long. So if we unplug, it's gonna, I'm surprised, there we go. The battery button will show that it's on and now it's running on battery. You cannot use the air compressor if you're running on battery. That thing would be a battery hog. It would suck it dry in a minute. So, and you'll see that you have a power loss here, telling you there's a problem. But it will continue to run. And since we're plugged into a red outlet, the generator would kick on anyways. Down here are some other buttons. Screen lock, we don't usually use, but you could lock the screen. Volume. Set the volume on the alarms. There's a 2-minute silence button, and then there's a reset button. Question mark will give you, you can look up information. So if you want to see what, a few basics, let's see. Screens, areas, and basic hints. It'll tell you what all you can do there. We go back, and it'll tell you about on-screen symbols. Tells you what each one of those is for. Whoops, sorry. Let's go back to where we were. On-screen symbols tells you what everything is. So alarms, alarm limit high, alarm limit low, and then the alarm log, how you would get to that, which is right there. So then we can hit go back, and then go back again. And let's see if we want to talk about the short self-test. It'll tell you, disconnect the ventilator from the patient before running the SST. Use SST to check the patient's circuit for leaks and to calculate compliance and resistance. Excuse me. Always rerun the SST whenever you change the circuit or the humidifier type, because it's going to check everything with the circuit. So if you have to change a circuit for some reason, you have to redo the SST. And then it tells you exactly what to do. Install the circuit, ensure that the patient isn't hooked up, turn the vent on, and then run the SST. Touch SST, and then press the test button. So it tells you exactly what you need. So it's a nice little thing to be able to go through and see what everything is. New patient setup, how to get it ready for a new patient. So I would definitely take the time to look at that as well. And then if we want to get out of there, we can just go back to our waveform screen. 100% O2 button. Manual inspiration, if you just want to give a breath, you just push it. Expiratory pause and inspiratory pause. You don't have to do both of these to get compliance and plateau on this ventilator. You have to do an inspiratory pause. What would be something we would use an expiratory pause for? What could it?
It's a hyperinflate to help you with.
Not really.
Allow the longer to exit.
No, Vic?
How about to calculate the resistance?
You don't actually need it for that, but there's some kind of information you can get by doing an expiratory pause.
Plateau pressure.
No, that's inspiratory. Auto peep.
Auto peep.
I didn't hear you.
Peep.
Sorry. Dennis, walk up, man. Raise your hand. Then I won't call on you. No, I'm kidding. Okay. So if we want to do, so this pushing this Just doesn't really tell you much of anything. This one here, that's the little clipboard with the little volume thing on it. That tells you all the alarms that have gone off. And this one just takes us to other screens. If you wanted to go in and see when all the SST was done, it would be right there. Otherwise, we're going to normally stay here. And if you want to change what's on the screen here, you go to plot setup, and then you can change. This one only does 2 waveforms at a time. We're going to leave it where it is. You can freeze it, and it will freeze the window. It'll give all the breaths, but now once that window is done, it won't give you another one until you ask for another one. So you go, okay, I've seen what I want to see. I hit unfreeze, and then it'll start again. Okay, I got to fix the, which one? This vent has an alarm for both the mandatory and the spontaneous tidal volume. We don't have to worry about the spontaneous since we have a plastic lung, but obviously in the real world you would need to set both, especially if your patient's in like an SIMV mode, because then you need to have a low tidal volume in case their tidal volume gets too low. So if we want to do an inspiratory pause, let me take it out of pressure control. If you hear that noise, it doesn't like what you're doing. It won't, that beep 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 thing. Okay, so we're going to do our inspiratory pause. Watch up here in just a second. So we do our pause, and you can see our plateaus right there. Then you'll get your compliance coming up right there. This vent doesn't ever calculate resistance. It's got a spot for it, but let me see if I do both. It will stay on this screen now because you did a maneuver. It's frozen the screen. So it's going to stay there until you tell it to go off the screen. So now we got our plateau, which is nice because it will keep that up there until you can write it down. So our plateau is 21, our compliance is 15. Let's unfreeze. Let's see if... Yeah, it won't. I've never been able to get it to have the resistance come up. So, questions? That's pretty much everything. All right, so I'm going to turn this one off. I'll get your labs. We need to get the other 5 vents out of the hall, and let's break up.